Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all for your attending. We're going to give everybody at least another minute, rather 30 seconds, Edwin, for you to get everyone admitted, and then we'll get started. All right, LaSar team, you ready to get started? All
We are
right.
ready.
So once again, thank you all for joining us. My name is Ernestina Simmons, the director here at MOHS. We absolutely appreciate each of you taking the time to join us as we kind of walk through the RFP for the proposals to convert the hotels that was recently acquired by the city for bid, with an ultimate goal of these projects becoming permanent supportive housing. So we're happy to take a few minutes and go through the PowerPoint presentation, and also to give you an opportunity to ask your questions that you have about the RFP and our proposal. I'm going to turn it over to the LaSar team to walk us through.
Thank you so much, Director Simmons. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Craig Edelman. I'm a senior principal at LaSar Development Consultants, and together with Margrave partners, we have been assisting the city as consultants on this strategy to acquire hotels and ultimately convert them to permanent supportive housing. So really excited to see the turnout this afternoon for this bidder conference. And we look forward to walking through the request for proposals that has been released and providing some potential additional information or insights to that, and then fielding questions from you. As Director Simmons said, I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues at LaSar Development Consultants, who are going to run most of this presentation, as well as our friends from Margrave. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Edwin Pert, who's going to take us into the heart of the information.
Thanks, Craig. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edwin Pert, and I am with the LaSar team, and I am joined by colleagues Stacy Calderon and Hillary Carter, who will be presenting slides as well. So just wanted to make a note that today's meeting is going to be recorded. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So once we wrap up today's presentation, you can click on that link and you'll be able to access the recording. Just a quick agenda. So we're going to go over, as Craig mentioned, the RFP, schedule of events, the purpose of the RFP, eligible respondents. We're going to briefly go over threshold requirements, scoring criteria, talk about next steps, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So during the meeting, you can submit questions to us using the Q&A feature. We will be tracking questions, and so we're either going to answer those here during our Q&A segment, or we will be answering questions through our Q&A document, which will be posted to MOHS's website in the form of an RFP addendum. So you'll be able to track all of the questions and answers that come out of this meeting. Additionally, email questions as they come to you to baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com, and you can submit those questions up until July 29th at 3 p.m. Again, that email address is baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com, and I am going to ask one of my colleagues to just drop that link in the chat, or the email in the chat. Just a few disclaimers. So this is an overview of the RFP. And so for complete and detailed information, please refer to the RFP document. It's posted on MOHS's website. And just wanted to reiterate that the content of the information provided in the webinar is for your general information and use only, and is subject to change. So just please refer to the RFP that's posted on the website. If there are any changes to the RFP, we will be posting those on the web as well. So just make sure you track there. And then any questions, again, baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com. All right, so schedule of events. This is also in the RFP. So the RFP, the request for proposals, was released a couple of weeks ago on July 3rd. We are now at the second milestone, so to speak, in our timeline, which is the bidders conference that is being held today. As a reminder, that is recorded. And between July 24th and July 26th, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., we're going to be holding optional hotel visits by appointment. So I am going to drop a link in the chat because registration is required. While it's optional, registration is required for that. So just make sure if you are interested in attending a site visit that you fill out the survey, and we'll be dropping that in the chat. The deadline, as mentioned earlier, to submit questions is July 29th. So submit any questions to baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com. And Hillary has already dropped that in the chat. We will be releasing a Q&A addendum no later than August 2nd. That will include questions that we received today. It'll also include questions that come through baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com. The deadline to submit proposals is August 16th at 3 p.m. And from there, between August 19th and August 30th, we will be reviewing and scoring proposals for a conditional award to be issued sometime in September, October. And then after that, obviously, transfer of ownership and then a construction start date. But that is all after September and October. While we're on this slide, just want to reiterate the deadline to submit proposals is August 16th at 3 p.m. And if you have any questions, please just email baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com. Now I'm going to pass it to Stacy to walk through the purpose of the RFP.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacy Calderon with Lasar Development Consultants, and I do want to highlight, if you haven't already, please go through the RFP. It's going to have all of the details needed to submit a proper proposal for this. So we're going to give a high-level overview of the proposal and its requirements. So for kind of a background, the city recently purchased the sites in this RFP using ARPA funding, and the city is seeking to transfer ownership of the properties to a selected respondent per this RFP. So there's 3 adjacent downtown city-owned sites that are in this RFP. These will be awarded to 1 respondent. So there's the Sleep Inn and Suites, Holiday Inn Express, and the parking lot located in the center there. Next slide. So the project requirements. So the selected respondents, or those who are applying for this RFP, will need to rehabilitate, own, and operate the permanent supportive housing at the sites. The RFP expects proposers to include a developer, property manager, and service provider per each application. And we do want to highlight that a single organization can play all of these roles, or separate organizations working in partnership can apply, and they must bring together their partnership through a memorandum of understanding between the parties and submitted with the application itself. Next slide, please. For this RFP, for the permanent supportive housing, you should aim to serve the target populations. The key projects will serve individuals and families currently experiencing homelessness. And the proposals should aim to have a mix of 1 to 2 bedroom units that would serve these individuals and families experiencing homelessness. So eligible respondents for this RFP. So the city is looking for qualified nonprofit, for-profit, or joint venture applications for organizations who have experience developing permanent supportive housing. So at least 3 multifamily permanent supportive housing developments within the past 10 years. You should express that within your proposal. All entities should be in good standing with the state of Maryland. So making sure that your registrations are up to date and all reporting is up to date as well. There should be commitment to operating your program under the Housing First model. And all of these should be expressed within your application. So I'm going to hand it off to Hillary. She's going to cover threshold requirements.
Thank you, Stacey. So with your proposals, Copies of the certificate of good standing, like Stacy mentioned before, for all entities should be provided. If it's applicable, evidence of 501c3 statuses for nonprofits, and then the last 2 years financial audit. We're also asking that a project intent summary narrative be submitted that highlights the developer's interest in and plans for developing the PSH at the sites. Next slide. If once proposals pass those threshold requirements, we'll go on to the sort of technical scoring that is outlined in the RFP. So the proposals should include organizational charts for the team members or structures with the different entities, if applicable, demonstrating experience owning and operating the 3 multifamily PSH developments. And then we want to see narratives about how the respondent will complete the project, and also narratives about the service provider's experience serving the target populations. Next slide. In the project proposal, we want to see completed property management, tenant selection, and supportive services plans. These should be thorough and robust and well thought through. And then we want to see a narrative for how the respondent will develop the properties, including like a unit mix, on-site and nearby off-site amenities, and any sustainability features that'll be built into the buildings. We'll also need to see a project schedule that should be realistic and detailed, that include all phases of the project from pre-development to lease-up. And then next slide, we'll want to see a financial feasibility pro forma with 20 years of cash flow. Those pro formas should include the pre-development sources and uses of funds, construction and permanent sources and uses of funds, that 20-year cash flow analysis, the proposed unit mix, and the proposed construction budget. Next slide. Entities that are city certified minority business enterprises or women-owned business enterprises will be awarded points. And as indicated there on that second bullet, qualified entities could register for and will be provided proof of that status through that the website linked there and also in the RFP. And then lastly, we're looking at the submission quality of proposals, if they have all the requirements, how they're organized, and if they're complete for those last points. And then I will turn it back over to Edwin.
All right, so just going through some next steps, just covering at a high level the selection process. So a review panel will be selected by the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services and the Department of Real Estate. And so that review committee or panel is going to make recommendations that will be approved by MOHS and the Department of Real Estate. And they have the authority as the review panel to approve or reject recommendations. After the deadline, but before awards are announced, respondents may be asked to provide oral presentations to the review panel or the MOHS Board of Directors or staff, just for the purpose of clarifying the proposal. So here's the selection criteria points system. So we are giving 30 points for respondent qualification and experience, 35 points of the 100 for project proposal and design. And as Hillary mentioned, 25 points is for financial feasibility and the project schedule. We also have 5 points for minority business enterprises and women-owned business enterprises. And then just overall submission quality also receives 5 points. So a maximum of 100 points. Upon selection, MOHS is going to issue an exclusive negotiating privilege to the selected respondents. And just for context, the properties are currently owned by the City of Baltimore, and the exclusive negotiating privilege will specify the terms and conditions under which the city will negotiate with the selected respondent to enter into a land disposition agreement for the sale of the property. And so once awarded, the selected respondent will be responsible for obtaining all necessary entitlements And the selected respondent will also be asked to provide updates and any documentation on pre-development activities for the project. So just wanted to give a little table setting there. That concludes the presentation. We now want to open it up for Q&A, but before we do that, just wanted to note that if you have any questions, please email baltimorepsh@lasardevelopment.com. Questions, comments should go to this email. We will be tracking those questions that come out of this conference, and through the email will be noted in our Q&A addendum. So just wanted to reiterate that. It's in the chat. And with that, I will open it up for general Q&A, and we'll also drop in the bit.ly link so you can easily access the RFP. So I am going to stop sharing and open it up to questions.
Great. Edwin, I've got my hand up. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a few questions for you, for the group.
Oh, great, great.
Excellent. So it's quite a bit. So the first question is, have you considered extending the due date of the proposal? Mainly because the site visit occurs just less than 3 weeks before the due date. So based on the site visit, that's when we'll get the best view of the condition of the property, be able to better calibrate the mix of incomes across units, family size versus individual. So any thought has been given to that?
I'll take that question. No, we haven't given any thought to that yet, but we will take it under consideration and thought. You're the first one to bring that up to us, so we appreciate the question.
Okay, great. And just a couple of others related to the condition of the property. I may have missed it, but I didn't see if there were any floor plans or phase 1 environmental, anything related to that. Is that something that you would provide?
We do not have floor plans for the facilities at this time, although we can see if the prior owner has anything available.
Okay.
And post that. And we will make any environmental analysis that the city has available as well.
Okay, great.
Eric, is Eric Evans from real estate on this? I saw him.
I'm here.
Do we have phase 1s? Do you remember?
I believe we might have some kind of environmental. I'm not sure. I have
Okay.
to check the file, but I think we may have phase 1s.
And what about a property condition assessment of some sort? That
We,
takes inventory of systems, age. all
yeah,
that good
we
stuff.
have those. We have pretty good updated assessments on both properties. They're fairly new.
Yeah, so how would a bidder get a hold of that? Happy to sign any confidentiality agreement.
Yeah, after this meeting, we'll discuss setting up a data room.
Great, excellent. Few more questions about that. What would also be helpful if you don't have floor plans, at least a list of for each floor, the number of bedrooms and baths and the square footage, again, all in the hopes of designating the right type of tenant into each unit. Okay. And then also the suite furnishings. I know we'll be taking a tour of the site. But I'm sure there won't be enough time to go into every single unit, but understanding what furnishes are already there, because I'm familiar with these type of hotels where they may have a small kitchen, of course, a dedicated bathroom, maybe even a couch, something like that. It would be good to know. Okay.
I think that's our
Okay.
acknowledgement of the question.
Okay, thank you. Silence is agreement. That's what I always say. And the last question, well, for now, I promise, is there below grade parking on the sleep-in site? I saw that there was one level on the Holiday Inn, but I was wondering if in the sleep-in, if there's below grade. It did say X number of spaces, but just wanted to distinguish.
No,
No.
parking
Okay.
is free.
Okay, that's all my questions. I'll go on mute.
No, thank you for the question still. And so after this conference, after this call, we are going to convene and take all of the questions and the different requests and respond to them accordingly. So if anyone else has questions or items that they would like to see, we will absolutely take it under consideration in trying to provide it to the group that has registered.
Eric, would you like to mention the leases on this Zoom? Or would you like for us to?
You can feel free to mention the various leases that we have.
Yeah, so there are some leases that exist on the property for cell tower and billboard. And there is some term left on those, which we will summarize, but we wanted to make everyone aware that there are existing leases that may be expiring, but the acquirer could approach both leaseholders to determine whether or not an extension is possible.
I'm happy to answer some of the questions that came in on the chat. Let other people pipe in too. Caroline asked, what's the mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units desired? We're leaving that up to the respondents to determine. And as discussed earlier, I think that if we can get site plans up and then if you do the site tours, making sort of informed decision about the unit mix that you'll propose. The next question comes from Mr. Morrison. Is there a multi-year contract subsidizing the rents, or will it be an annual appropriation? Which agencies would be underwriting the tenant rent subsidies? In the RFP, we've noted that we expect the Housing Authority to put out a request for proposals for project-based vouchers in the next couple of months, and it will be the responsibility of the selected respondent to secure any and all operating subsidies. Lori Holmes asked if there's any funding commitments to support the supportive services. There are not any funding commitments from the city. And then the next question I think is probably best suited for Eric about if there's any historic restrictions on either of the 2 buildings.
Not that we are aware of.
I saw Kevin ask that question. Kevin, they appear to land in a national historic district called the Gay Street, or National Register of Historic Places called the Gay Street district. And CHAP has a page about it that I will link in the chat, but that's all we've ever found.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I would imagine the old bank building, the Holiday Inn Express, likely has more historic protections tied to it. However, the other building built a couple of years earlier, it looks like from your RFP, I know inside it has like a couple of preserved walls, but the RFP indicates that it was partially rebuilt.
Correct.
But of the 2 from the sleep-in has, shall we say, less advantageous bones compared to the Holiday Inn.
It would be our expectation that the respondent will research that as part of their due diligence, but I did link in the chat the what I found on the Gay Street corridor.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Well,
So
I'll ask
feel free
another
to unmute.
question. Well, I'll ask another question. Do you have a budget in mind for one, for the purchase of the property? I know the RFP said a nominal fee, but that can be interpreted in many ways. So I was wondering if that's one of the competitive points amongst the teams, you know, who may offer the most funds for the building, but then also, is there going to be any contribution? I know the question was asked already about is there any financial incentives or funding, but any contribution towards the project, whether it's financial or in kind, in terms of, let's say, permit expediting or plan review, things like that, that can certainly, as you know, hold a project up for months, or with your support, certainly progress it more effectively.
I'll answer from my lens. No, there are no points associated with the dollar value that you put in your RFP. So that is not a part of our scoring criteria in any way, shape, or form. For
Right.
the second part of the question, we intend to remain supportive of this project even after the developer, the nonprofit organization is solidified. Our financial commitment is that of the asset. However, our support, we will continue to remain involved and engaged. We're 100% committed to seeing this project be successful. So that will look a little bit different just in terms of what's needed from the identified developer slash nonprofit organization.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. And just to follow up on that, do you have a desired date for delivery of one or at least both existing buildings?
We're gonna let the RFP process
Okay.
to understand what are you all thinking in your design. We're not gonna
Okay.
put that level of pressure out there, but we are curious.
No, that pressure's better. You know, the more we know that what you want, it's actually better. But thank you, Ms. Simmons.
No
Well, and
problem.
I would just state, you know, there are people desperately in need of PSH units, and so as soon as possible, hopefully goes without saying, within the context of what is feasible and reasonable, which we're looking to you all to opine on.
Great, thank you.
And then this is outlined in the RFP, but the developer is responsible for securing the financing to do the construction or the rehabilitation of the buildings. And so that will obviously be a component in your timeline and sort of how to work backwards from that, you know, occupancy date, if you will.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. Could I hop in and ask a question real quick? In regards to the desired outcome for the population we aspire to serve, other than just housing them and obviously providing some amenities and wraparound services, is there a particular desired outcome for these individuals and families that the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services would like to see? Right? Is it an employment metric? Is it a health metric? Is it a mental or financial health metric? Or is it, just, I'll leave it open there, but is there a desired outcome you'd like to see produced in the, families, individuals we'll be serving?
Mr. Morrison, I absolutely appreciate that question. So in our update, what we will send out is what are the standard performance outcomes we like to see from permanent supportive housing programs. What that typically would look like is we'd love to see 98% of the clients remaining stably housed after a period of 1 year. We like to see 30% of the clients have an increased in earned income. So there are particular benchmarks that are standard across PSH projects that we can absolutely provide in our update. So thank you so much for that question.
Thank you. That's what we're all here for.
Thank you.
See a question or a clarification from Kevin in the chat about the minimum desired number of units. Director Simmons, I don't know if you're looking at that as well. My understanding is our desire is 100 permanent supportive housing units.
That is
as the
100 PSH units, but also you're open to other units at different income levels as specified in the RFP on that site, correct? So if the state, for example, is limiting, as it has in the past, its LIHTC program to only 50% being PSH, one would have to do a 200 unit project there, but you would want 100 of them to be PSH. Is that correct? So
I'll
much
jump
to,
in and say, Kevin, we understand the limitation on the 9% program, which is why our assumption is that the financing plan is not likely to use 9% tax credits.
though you would be open to that.
But
if it,
yes, to your point, and I will defer somewhat. I'll defer to Director Simmons on this. But if we can get 100 PSH units and more affordable units on top of that, that sounds like a good outcome.
I just noted that you had up to 60% AMI in the RFP, and that's not realistic for a PSH unit for the populations that PSH is generally targeting.
That's correct. That was just a technical in terms of the defining income limits on what we understand, in particular the project-based voucher use on the property. So don't take that as our direction on what income levels should be included. I think it's a statement on what income levels are allowable, or the full range of what is technically allowed.
I see, but you are intending at least 100 PSH units,
correct?
And if other units need to be included to allow the financing of that, then that's up to the developer.
Correct.
And Kevin, like as you noted, 30 for PSH units, it'll be 30% AMI. But like I explained, it can go up to 60% AMI. And then on the LIHTC on the property, it's also just how you would propose financing the development. I've scored the property under the LIHTC QAP in the state, and it'd be a reach without those points, as you probably know, to get a 9% award. But thinking creatively about how else it might be financed is the way I would phrase that.
Yeah, Hillary, did you use the last year's QAP or the current draft of the next QAP?
I used last year's.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I will just remind folks that questions can continue to be submitted via the email link through, sorry, I'm forgetting the date. I think it was the 29th, but correct me if I'm wrong there. But this is not, once we close the bidders conference, is not the end of the opportunity.
Carolyn has a question inside the chat about a feasibility study. Was a feasibility study done on these two sites?
I can jump in.
Hillary, do you want to speak to that?
It has not, and as the RFP discloses, it'll be up to the developer to do entitlements, due diligence, all of that work, and come up with construction drawings. At this point, it's really conceptual in the proposals, and then the renovation costs, you would have to work with your general contractor to come up with a construction cost for the buildings.
Before I let everyone leave, I want to make sure that everything that it would be helpful for each of you to have has been lifted up and asked for in this meeting. So is there anything else from anyone that it would just be helpful if we was able to send it to you as an addendum?
I would say your desired, oh, sorry.
So for the group, so far, I've noted for floor plans, environmental analysis, property condition assessment, square footage for each of the rooms. Was there any historic protections? Sending out the housing outcomes. We understand that the feasibility study will be up to you. If you're thinking that you need additional time or additional days, We've blocked 2 days for you all to be able to see it, but if there is a concern that that is not enough time, please give us your thoughts. I've already heard from Ms. Hanson. It might be helpful if there was an extended date, not exactly the date that we've put out, but would you be saying an additional week or 2 would be helpful, Ms. Hanson and group? What are we thinking is helpful?
Yeah, I'm thinking 3 weeks is helpful.
One of the things we want to lift up is that there are other processes that will need to happen that we're also trying to time on your behalf proactively.
Okay.
So a lot of this date was also dictated by knowing how long it's going to take to BOE, how long it's going to take for the selected person to get site control in order to try to create an internal calendar for us of how we support you through the next steps. So just helping the group to understand that's another way that this date was designed. The next items that we know is going to be very important for this group.
Okay. Well, even a 2-week would be great. Do you have a desired delivery date for, let's say, the first building? Is there a desire to have 90% of the units occupied, what we call stabilization, by a certain date? That's helpful as well.
Perfect. I think we can provide some guidance on projected outcomes or wish outcomes on our side, and we can include that in there.
That's great, because that helps us with the construction schedule, as you can imagine, working backwards from that. Okay.
I would just note too on the deadlines, considering other subsidies, right, in terms of when you might apply for your construction sources, sort of working back, and this isn't in response to why we set our date when we did, or 2 weeks is a pretty nominal extension request, but sort of in the development timeline, we were thinking about kind of each one of these components and how the other subsidies would come in to fall into place for this project as well.
I think originally I had very unrealistic expectations, Ms. Hanson, so the group had to rein me in, right?
You wanted it even sooner?
When I tell you what was in there, I'm going to tell you that the group had to rein me in and let me know, at least be kind and just don't scare people and take that off. So we can thank Bill Cole for reining me in, because I had a very unrealistic target that was put in there. So I will go back to the group, but you would be very happy to know that someone reined me in.
Yeah, because I mean, as everyone knows, like, we're all working on different projects and capital, you've got investors and need to allocate where your time and resources go, and getting the right team members who also have capacity as well factors into our timing. So I appreciate the consideration for even a 2-week extension.
Yes. Thank
I
you.
would just piggyback too on your occupancy question. It'll be something for your lenders to consider, as I'm sure you're aware, right, in terms of when the loan will convert.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But it's always nice to work backwards from what the city may have as a target. Yeah. Oh no, we want to get it occupied as quickly as possible. But understanding also that if we're applying for project-based vouchers, hopefully that schedule will run on time. So we have to figure out other contingencies.
Perfect. Any other questions or any other thoughts?
I just dropped in the chat, along with that environmental list and other feasibility documents, a survey would be also helpful, land survey.
Okay.
We'll come up with everything that we have on the site, Mr. Marson.
Thanks so much. Additionally, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. You will enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, thank you so much for joining us and your interest in this project. Clearly, permanent supportive housing is absolutely is going to be the key to us being able to house and take care of those that really needs care. And so that's one of the things that I personally love about permanent supportive housing. Services matter, housing matters, but the combination of the two is life altering. So thank you all.